Hey guys, Teresa here. Welcome back to my channel, Lost My Thread. I am here with a sewing and chatty life update for the months of June and July. So I have my trusty cup of chai. I do encourage you guys to get some kind of drink or snack because I think this is going to be a long one. I am going to have to pare down how much I want to share with you guys because there's been a lot going on in the last couple of months. I have a lot of sewing projects to talk about, which is what I'm going to start with, but I've also been away on holiday. I've been up to quite a lot and I'm going to have to pick and choose to try and make this video less than a few hours long. But I'm going to start with the sewing stuff as I always do, and I'm going to have to start with what I'm wearing because I'm super excited about it. Now, this really for me is all about showcasing the fabric. This fabric is from Blackbird Fabrics. It's a yarn dyed linen, 100% linen fabric that I got from them a couple of years ago. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with it, but I knew that I was in love with the fabric and I knew that I wanted it and I wanted to make something from it. So I can show you guys up close because I've got a matching set. This is a top and a pair of shorts and a matching scrunchie, and I'm truly in love with the whole trio. This fabric is so wonderful. The colors I just love so much. They have called this colorway Juicy, which I think is spot on, absolutely appropriate. Hopefully you can get an idea of the drape, the bounce of this fabric. It is truly glorious. I really do recommend their yarn dyed linen fabric. I don't think they've got this particular colorway at the moment, but any of them are going to be winners in my books. So I knew when I got this fabric, I wanted a top to toe look. I did think about making a dress, but I decided that separates would be better because then obviously I can mix and match them with other things, but I thought it would be really fun to be able to wear them together. Now, what I thought would be great for this time of year, we've had a particularly hot spring and summer. I feel like we've gone straight from like autumn, winter to just straight into summer weather in the UK, especially in London where I live. It's been really warm. And the one thing that I have been really just wanting and needing were some comfortable elastic waist shorts. Now I had ideas of making some from the Friday Pattern Company Saturday Sport Shorts. I have a pair here. You're gonna have to just appreciate that these are linen. I did not press these because they were kind of balled up to be dealt with later. I can put in some pictures of what these shorts actually look like. But I shared this in my previous makes video that I actually had some problems where the binding was coming away at the side seams and they were kind of on thin ice. I wasn't sure if I was going to keep them, and I decided to just do that repair, and I kind of reinforced it by doing some overlocking. I unpicked a whole section and basically did the binding in the way that I think you probably should do, which was not how Friday Pattern Company instruct you to do it. And then I was wearing these and I noticed that I've got a hole now at the bottom of the short, so another area where the binding is not attached. I put it to one side because I just mentally needed to put it to one side. I am going to repair that part of the shorts. I'm still going to see if I can get away with wearing those shorts, but basically I made those and then I immediately started looking for another type of pair of shorts that were similar, that had a similar thing going that I could then use for more shorts. And I surely have found those in these shorts. So these are the June shorts by Helen's Closet. I actually didn't think that much about them when I first saw the pattern. There's an elastic waist pants, June pants, and June shorts that come together. There are two views of the shorts though, and the one that I made did draw my eye. It has this really cool, like a petal almost crossover section. You can cross the front or the back first. I really do prefer the way that I've done it though, where the back section goes in first and then the front section crosses around the back. I'm sure it will make more sense when you're seeing images of this. I think it's such a cute look. I feel like it's quite playful, a little bit sexy, because you do have essentially like a whole flap section that you could theoretically open up at the side and completely reveal your underwear. And when I saw it, as much as I liked the look, I thought, oh, are those actually going to be practical? Am I going to be able to wear those anywhere than just at home? But I decided I needed some comfortable shorts for the hot weather, and even if I could only wear them at home, I didn't really care. I was just gonna go for it. Now, these shorts actually have a very short rise. This particular view has a 2-inch rise. I'm somebody, I know from my own body, my proportions, I like a 4-inch rise. If it's higher, it kind of rides up a little bit more for me. 4 inches is like a sweet spot. So I decided to lengthen the rise on these, which meant I did have to redraw the curve of the shape of the pant leg, but there are instructions to do that in pattern instructions. They give you like a diagram of how to do that if you want to do that. I have to say, I don't really know why these are such a short rise, because the other view of them has a longer rise. I guess they're just probably supposed to be more for just at home is probably the idea. But doing that little 2-inch length adjustment and then adjusting the curve of them, these are my favorite elastic waist shorts. I don't really ever see another pair of elastic waist shorts surpassing them, honestly. They have that binding detail that I really wanted, that cute binding that goes around the edge. The benefit of that, and the reason why I was drawn to that, is because I feel like sometimes if you have quite a fun, playful fabric, having something that just sort of goes around the edge just kind of emphasizes that pattern a little bit. I have ideas of other shorts I want to make, and you'll probably understand when I make some of those up, but I've made shorts like this in the past with this different pattern. It was the Pearl Soho City Gym shorts, those were called. Now those ones, it's a free pattern, but it's quite a small size range, and I was just at the top of them, and I felt like I wanted to find a pattern with a more inclusive size range, but also that would be probably a little bit of a better fit for my shape. And I was hopeful with these. It did feel like a risk to use this special fabric on these shorts, but I decided that one way or another I would be able to wear them at home, and I knew they would be comfortable to wear in the summertime. I did add some patch pockets onto the back of my version as well, just because I want to be able to stick my phone in my pocket, put something in my pocket as I'm going around the house, and I'm really glad that I put those on. I do think that it probably detracts a little bit from the overall look of these shorts, but I think it's a cute contrast. I think it's a nice detail on the back there, and more importantly, they are practical and they do the job. Now, like I said, I was a bit worried that these would end up being a little bit too revealing on the side. And yes, you can pull like the flap up at the front and reveal your underwear, but that doesn't just happen naturally. And so I was worried about, say, sitting, for example. And so I did take a picture of me sitting down so you can see from the side. It does separate open a little bit, so there's perhaps like a little bit more thigh showing than would be on like a regular pair of elastic waist shorts, but it's not anywhere close to my underwear line. There's nothing going to be peeking out that I don't need to. Maybe if you were doing like a shoulder stand in yoga, things would flop open enough that you could see the sides of your underwear, but you kind of have to be working to make that happen. They're not too revealing on the day-to-day, and I've worn them out and about, and I did not feel uncomfortable. I did not feel exposed. The thing about these shorts, the particular design with the sort of fact that you don't have an actual side seam apart from the waistband and everything's just crossed over, it just means that there's more movement and flexibility. So if you are somebody, and I have been this person, where when you sit down, sometimes because your thighs expand, your shorts aren't sitting as comfortably at the hip area or in the leg area, things are kind of pulling. Because these move and expand as much as you need them to, I never have that problem. The other thing I will say is something about the design, again, I don't know if it's like the free flow of the legs that's different with these, but I have never had a problem with these shorts riding up. They are just loose, they are floating around me. It's kind of like wearing a skirt, but wearing shorts. I'm not gonna stop telling you guys how much I love these shorts. I'm gonna be making more of these shorts. They are gorgeous. They are so wonderful to wear. And what I decided I wanted to do with the top to match, because I knew I wanted to make something to match, I wanted fairly simple lines. I didn't want anything too complicated, but I thought it would be fun to do something else that had that binding detail. And so I made the Brea Tee by Halfmoon Atelier, which is a go-to for me. I've made many versions in both knit and woven. You can make it in either. This one comes in different bust cup sizes, which is always a bonus. And it has a very similar binding section that goes around the sleeve and the sort of the shoulder section as well and crosses around the neckline. Now, I had in my mind visions, because this is a check fabric and you've got a square grid, when I put the bias binding on, it was going to look so amazing because it was going to be on the bias, it was going to be diagonal. And it is true, like if you look at it up close, you do have the diagonal lines, but I feel like there's something about like the busyness of the colors that you kind of lose it. I don't mind though. I do really love it, and it's nice to know that detail is there. And I do love this top. I feel like it's a great fit for me. It's a great shape for me. It's just a very simple top with a little grown on raglan, not dolman sleeve, grown on dolman sleeve. It just has enough shaping for me to be comfortable. I have cropped this version because I feel like it would pair better with these shorts. They're also a very high waist short, I have to say. I often have to extend the rise on my shorts, and these ones were like spot on right out of the packet. Just like chef's kiss, love these shorts. And I had some of this fabric left over, and there was no way I was not going to take the opportunity to make a matching scrunchie. I love that it's a chunky scrunchie. So obviously, like depending on the thickness of the fabric strip that you're working with, you're going to get a thicker or a thinner scrunchie. And this one, my guess is I was maybe working with like a 3-inch strip before I made it, because it is really nice and fat, which I really like because I want to make the most of this fabric. I think it looks really cute as a whole outfit. I did have to take some photos too because I have some glasses. These are just my sunglasses. They're just prescription. I got them from Specsavers. It's just like the cheapy place where people get their glasses in the UK. But these are actually a Vivienne Westwood design sunglasses, and I really enjoy a lot of my outfits end up just accidentally matching with my sunglasses, and I felt like these ones were just like too good. They matched really, really well. So I had to get a photo to show you guys that just as like an amusing bonus. But the whole outfit I think is so cute. It is so fun. It is playful. Like I said, I feel like it's like a little bit flirty, a little bit sexy with that movement of the pant leg. It's such a great set, and it's one of my favorite things I've made in a while. And then I also have a few projects that came in because I recently went on a trip back home to the States, and I had ideas of things that I thought would be good for me to have on that trip. And so that basically took the priority over all of my other sewing. And so the first thing that I made was a pair of pants. So these are the Cass elastic waist pants, free pattern from thefabricstore.com. I bought this really gorgeous viscose linen noil fabric from Sew Me Sunshine. I really love this kind of fabric in general. I thought this color was really great. It's like a kind of a dark foresty green, and I wanted something basically that was dark that wasn't black. And I think it's probably not quite as good on camera. I'll see if I can do a little color correcting. It's a bit more green than I feel like it's showing, but this has really wonderful drape to it. It's actually a fairly weighty fabric, and I really like that about this, particularly with wide leg trousers. I feel like you get really great swoosh and movement with the weight of the trouser moving around. So this is a free pattern that I have made before, but I will say when I made it more recently, I was trying to just double check the instructions to see what the seam allowance was. And though you can still download this pattern, I cannot actually find the instructions. And so I was making 2 pairs, one for myself, one for my mom. Sewed a pair up for my mom, thinking it was a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, tried them on, and everything just felt a little bit tight. Even the pockets were a little bit narrow, and I was like, shoot, it is meant to be 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, isn't it? And so I ended up unpicking a ton of the ones I made for my mom and stitching them up again, and they turned out fine, and I did the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. These I knew. So just FYI, I cannot find the instructions for these. I don't know if they are like phasing this pattern out or if they're updating or what, but it's basically, it's a really simple pair of elastic waist pants. There's nothing that exciting about them as far as like the construction. You can just, if you've made a pair of elastic waist pants, you can make these in the exact same way, but just be aware it's a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance or they're not going to fit the way you want them to. These pants though, the reason I made these honestly was because I wanted to wear them on the plane. These were my plane pants. I loved wearing them on the plane. They were so comfortable, very much like secret pajamas, really comfortable, but also I think look quite elegant with the color, with the fabric, with the drape and the movement. I did also wear them on a cooler evening over in the States when I was visiting, but they've just, for me, they're like just such a great staple. I will be wearing these for work. I will be wearing these just like going around and about the place. They are a great color that I feel like coordinate well with a lot of things in my wardrobe, but I don't have this color in my wardrobe. So I'm glad I made them. They are definitely going to be getting a ton of wear, and they were perfect for the trip. The other thing that I wanted to make myself for the trip was a cardigan, because I know that sometimes when you're going from like hot weather outside to air conditioning inside, it can get a little bit chilly. And so I thought it would be useful to have a lighter weight cardigan that was maybe a bit cropped, 3/4 length sleeves, and that would be just like good to go with lots of the things that I was going to be bringing with me. And so I decided to sew up the Juniper Cardigan by Jennifer Lauren Handmade. This is my version. This is a really gorgeous, this is a recent purchase from Blackbird Fabrics actually. I didn't realize I had more Blackbird Fabric stuff there. This I'm gonna put up on the screen. It's like a sweater knit. It's a viscose blend sweater knit, I wanna say. But as you can see, it actually is quite drapey, and it is like a medium weight. I think it was supposed to be lightweight, and I don't think it's thick. It's definitely a very thin fabric, but it does have a little bit of weight to it. And I think it was honestly so perfect. I'm really happy with how the binding came out. I used the exact same fabric for the binding. I think it looks super neat. The pocket or the buttons I got from Textile Garden. It's my favorite place to get buttons in the UK. I feel like you can get really great, just like simple buttons that are just really nice and unique. These are just an unbleached Carazzo button, which is like a synthetic ivory basically. And you can get unbleached, you can get white, and I ordered both, not knowing which would be better. And I think the unbleached definitely matched this color better. This is not a crisp white fabric. It's definitely a bit off-white, and that's definitely the kind of white that I feel like suits my skin tone better anyway. My thinking with this, like I said, was just to have it as a little layer to throw over things, but I was surprised that it was a little bit bigger in places than I anticipated. So the sleeves were actually quite baggy and long. The 3/4 length sleeve was long when I first made it. I'll pop in a picture of what it looked like before, and I decided in the end to just make it a slimmer sleeve and to make it a bit shorter so it's more 3/4 length for me. So I chopped a good, I want to say like 2 inches off the length of it. It's still not super tight on the sleeve, which is what I wanted because I do have some like fuller sleeves that I wanted to be able to get into this cardigan. And so I feel like what I've got now is a good balance, but I was also expecting this to be more cropped. So there's a cropped or a long view. I appreciate it's not like super long, but it's not as cropped as I was hoping it would be because I thought it would be something that I could throw on if I've got things that maybe have more of a defined waist, say like a dress with like a tie at the waist, and then it would just sort of sit round about where my waist is, but it's significantly lower than that. It's still very useful, but I have to say the whole time I was in the States, I did not reach for this cardigan once because it was just too hot and humid, and even when I was inside, I didn't particularly need those layers. So it was something that I made up for the trip, I brought to the trip, did not wear once while I was on the trip, but it will be useful at other times in my life. So it's not like I'm unhappy that I've made it, but I would say that just be aware the sleeves are super long. They are quite wide. I think it is a really great, what I would say is like a professional looking, ready to wear looking cardigan overall. It's probably the best I've made for that style that I feel like looks like something I would have bought from a shop. I think the thickness of the band, how everything curves, it's a really unusual construction of the sleeve and the shoulder. I tried to get some pictures that you guys can see, but basically the sleeve kind of extends right up into the neckline. So it was an interesting one to construct. I do like Jennifer Lauren Handmade for that. And I feel like on the whole, it was a success, even if it didn't turn out to be what I needed. The other thing that I decided I needed to get whipped up before my trip was something for my mom. Her birthday was not long after we were going to be there, and I thought it would be nice to make something for her as a birthday present. I like the idea of making her a head to toe look. I've made her a lot of tops, and she does like them, and she wears them, and it's really nice to see her wearing them. Always makes me happy. But I did feel like a whole top to toe look would be quite nice, but she's not really that big on dresses. I considered making her a jumpsuit. She's not somebody who I've ever seen in a jumpsuit. I don't know if she would want to wear a jumpsuit, but I think she would look super cool in one, and I think they're really comfortable jumpsuits. I decided to err on the side of caution and make a 2-piece matching set instead, and she can then tuck the top into the trousers if she wants to wear it as like a faux jumpsuit. The fabric I got was another viscose linen blend from Sew Me Sunshine in a gorgeous blue floral print. These colors are not my colors, but I feel like they're very much my mom's colors. I thought they would work really well for her. I thought the print was super pretty. I did, again, really love the weight in the drape. Very similar to my own like dark green fabric. It's a very similar weight and feel. And so I made the same cast wide leg pants for her and the Brea Tee like I'm wearing now, but I made the Brea Tee a bit more oversized because when she's told me things that she wants like for me to buy for her for birthdays and Christmas, she often likes this style of t-shirt, but just a bit more oversized in a woven. And so I thought that would be a nice matching combo. I think it turned out really beautifully. I was definitely unsure about how it was going to work out as far as sizing. I had to just guesstimate like the waistband, the length of the trouser. I had tried to get my dad to do a little bit of spying in her wardrobe, which just basically didn't really work out. He wouldn't give me very much information. But when she tried them on when I was there, we were all shocked with how well they fit. The length was exactly right. So she's just a tiny bit shorter than me, so I made it like an inch shorter than I would have made them, and well and truly, you would have thought that I had measured her inseam and everything was just perfection. She was really happy with the set. I thought it looked great. She was so excited with everything, the two pieces, that she went into her wardrobe and brought out all the things that would mix and match well, because of course they're separates. She had so many other things that would match well with the two, so I felt like it was definitely a win. I'm really happy I made those for her, and I hope she loves wearing them. I did do a couple of other alterations of things because I knew I wanted to have them as options to take on my trip. And one is for this dress, my March dress by Helen's Closet. Now I did talk about this in my last video. I made this one a while ago, really love the dress. It's in an Indian block print fabric that is just such beautiful fabric, guys. Just like, take a look at that. Gorgeous, gorgeous, love the colors. It's so lightweight and drapey and wonderful. It feels wonderful in the summer. It's definitely like one of my favorite summer dresses by far. And I knew I wanted to take it on my trip with me. But I've been noticing I don't always feel great in this dress. And the main reason, honestly, is because it's just loose and oversized. I initially took some pictures when I first made this dress, just as it was. I don't feel like the photos are particularly showing how it looks at times. I think depending on how the drape is falling on my body, it might not necessarily look as tent-like. I think the side view probably shows a bit more like how big it looks on my body, and I just didn't always feel great in it. Even though I enjoyed wearing it, I just didn't like the look when I was looking in the mirror. And so what I decided I needed to do was to add a little bit of waist shaping. And I've done this before on dresses that were just a little bit oversized. I just went right around that waist seam because there's a serged seam where the skirt attaches to the bodice. I folded that serged seam up and I did a little stitch right around the top edge of it. And then I inserted a small bit of elastic going around through that channel. It's not tight. I don't want it to be tight. I just wanted to pull it in just a little bit, and I'll pop in some footage of how it looks now, and hopefully you can see it's not tight. Like I said, I want still the room for the summer comfort, but I like that it just brings it in a tiny bit, particularly under the bust area, just to show a little bit of a sort of demonstration that there is a bit more of a curve to my body. I feel so much better in it, but it also still feels really wonderful and loose and comfortable. It was a small thing to do, but I feel like it's really changed how I feel in this dress. I can always do a tutorial about how to do this if you guys are interested, because like I said, I've done it on other dresses in the past as well. And then the other alteration I did was to take in the side seam of these pants. These are the Mitchell trousers by Closet Core in a viscose twill fabric. I made these pretty recently. The waist generally was bigger than I was expecting, and I noticed that when I was sort of cinching in the tabs at the sides, it was almost looking more like a paper bag waist at the side, which was not the look that I was going for. I'm not entirely sure if it's to do with just this fabric having a bit of give to it, but there is like a facing that's interfaced, so I feel like that should be pretty sturdy as it is. Maybe it's just to do with my own body shape changing. I've been having kind of ups and downs with my weight generally, so maybe that's part of it, but it was definitely very loose in the waist, and I decided that I wanted to have this to possibly bring on my trip, and so I ended up taking out a good chunk of the side seams. It didn't take that much. As far as unpicking, I did have to unpick. I had hand tacked this in place, and I had to unpick both the facing and the side seam to be able to make them both narrower. You wouldn't know, it looks perfect. It looks just like how it did before, and it didn't take that long to do that alteration. These do fit much better now, and I think I'm much more likely to reach for them, but I didn't end up taking them on the trip. I decided I wasn't really going to need another pair of pants, but it's still great for me to have in my wardrobe in general. Now, I went away at the end of June, came back mid-July, and since then I've done no actual sewing on the sewing machine, but what I have done is some pattern prep. So I cut out some fabric. I've got my Selwyn top cut out. So this is from the Cashmerette Club. I've shared this on my summer sewing plans. Something I'm curious to get people's opinions on. This has like a ruffle sleeve that I wanted to use, and there is a grain line on this sleeve piece. So this goes around like the shoulder like this. There is a grain line, but the way that it was wanting me to put the fabric out, I did not have enough fabric to be able to make it quite like that. And I ended up having to just narrow it a tiny bit, which I was considering doing anyway, if I'm completely honest. But I had to just rotate, so rather than it being like on grain, it was more like this. Because this is going around the whole curve of the sleeve, I have a hard time imagining that it really makes a difference. The only thing I can think as far as the grain line is maybe they wanted the area that's just on the shoulder to be more like a bias so that it drapes a bit better. But I'd be curious to know if you guys think it would make any difference really, because it's a whole round piece, which way the grain was. I guess I'm gonna find out when I make this baby up, and worst comes to worst, I can make it a sleeveless version. I'm sure it will be absolutely fine though. But it was just a funny one that I thought, I don't really understand why it needs to be in a specific direction, so thoughts down below. And then the other thing I've cut out is something that was from my spring sewing plans. I'm still catching up on those things, guys. I'm super behind, but I do still want to make all those things. And I've cut out a matching 2-piece set in this fabric, which I feel like, as you can see as I'm going through the pocket pieces, the glorious color that comes across in all the different sections. This is a Merchant & Mills fabric. It's their festival yarn dyed linen. Very similar to the fabric that I'm wearing now, so it's going to work in a very similar way, but obviously a bit more wild and colorful. This is a 2-piece set that I'm making from a dress pattern. So I'm using the Holyoke dress by Cashmerette, but I'm making a top and a skirt to match. And I did get so close with all of the fabric that I nearly had enough to cut everything out. But the last piece I didn't quite have enough was one of the pocket pieces. So I just had to stitch 2 sections together. I did a little French seam, and that's going to be one of the pocket bags. It's not going to matter. But just like as an FYI, guys, if you're ever getting really tight on fabric, you can bring multiple pieces together, especially if it's a pocket. It's never going to make a difference. And I do think it makes it a little bit nicer to use French seams. I am looking forward to getting these things all sewn up. Hopefully I'll actually have some real sewing time soon, but it was nice to at least just get things prepped. I had to also prep, print, and tape together all these PDF patterns, which is fairly time consuming. And it was kind of where my headspace was in the jet lag zone. It felt like what I felt I could manage as far as sewing is concerned. And that is just the sewing. So I feel like that's been plenty. I do want to talk about what I've been getting up to though in the last couple of months. I'm going to start with some bits from my 25 for 2025. I do not have anything to cross off on this list. This, I will put a link down below to the video where I introduced it, but it's 25 things I'm wanting to do this year. There are a lot that are like little, I have to chip away at over time, and I've definitely been making good progress on those. So I'll have a quick little chat about those first. I'm going to start with jigsaw puzzles. So I wanted to complete a jigsaw puzzle a month. My husband and I have been working on jigsaw puzzles together. He got the bug recently when we did some jigsaw puzzles. I always love jigsaw puzzles, and I think he enjoyed them, but I feel like he's properly gotten into them with me recently. And it's a fun thing to be able to just sit and hang out together and work on jigsaw puzzles. We've been having this whole weird little thing where we've been working through the music of a particular band. They're called King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard. They're an Australian, I don't know, it's like psychedelic rock, but they do also all kinds of like metal and indie and lots of different genres. There are other musicians from other bands working together, and they're a very fun band. They have a huge backlog of like albums that they've made, and we decided it would be fun to just work through from like beginning to the end, listening to their music while jigsaw puzzling. It's been very fun. It's been working very well. We just finished though, so any music recommendations are welcome. I'm always happy to check out some new bands that I'm not familiar with. But the jigsaw puzzle that we worked on in the month of June was an old one that I had from years ago. It's a Simpsons, what do they call it? Photo mosaic jigsaw puzzle. So it's lots of tiny images to make up a big image. I feel like there was a period where there was just photo mosaic everywhere, and that is obviously when I bought this jigsaw puzzle. It was a fun one to do. I think the photo mosaic element of it was patchy. Like, it was obviously the same images repeated over and over again. It did make it a bit easier because you could tell the direction of the piece, like which way was up or down, because you had the image on top of it. But it was a fun one to put together. It's not like my favorite jigsaw puzzle ever, but it was a decent one, I would say. And as far as pieces fitting together, it was pretty good. It was a little hit and miss at points, but on the whole, I would say it was a pretty good one. And it was just amusing to see all those tiny little images, like a little goofy Homer face as you were putting it all together. And we ended up putting together 2 jigsaw puzzles when we were on vacation, when we were staying with my parents. The first one was one that we bought when we went to Woodstock, Illinois. I kind of like gonna intersperse some of the things that I did on my trip. I basically went home to visit family. I'm from Chicago, but my parents have now moved out of the city. They're about an hour out of the city now. So we were staying with them and going around with what was around. They've moved into like a retirement community, 55 plus community. And I think it's really great for them because basically someone comes and takes care of so much of the stuff around them, the landscaping, the outside of the house. But there's also lots of things that they can do, like events that they can go to, classes they can take for very little. I think my mom pays like $4 a year for her book club that she's joined. But overall, there wasn't a ton of stuff to do. So it was mainly just a time to relax while we were there. And so we went to Woodstock, Illinois, which is where they filmed Groundhog Day, if you guys don't know that one. But it is definitely a very sweet, old-fashioned town center. All the shops, there's a lot of little independent shops around. And we ended up buying a jigsaw puzzle there that looked very funny. We wanted to get something that would be amusing to work on. And it's a goofy, it's like a hot dog in a hot dog bun, surrounded by hot dogs on a rainbow background. I wonder if it was there maybe because it was like the end of Pride Month, so maybe there was the rainbow there, but I mean, rainbows are fun anytime, right? And I did think it would be a very fun one to put together, but boy, was this a terrible jigsaw puzzle. The actual pieces, it was funny because we ended up showing a picture to my niece afterwards, my 13-year-old niece, who I thought would appreciate the jigsaw puzzle, and we thought maybe we'll give it to her after we complete it. But she had one look at the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle and said exactly what was on our minds, which was, why do all the pieces look exactly the same? There was no variation in these jigsaw puzzle pieces. To be fair, there was like obviously slight variations and there were two basic types of pieces, but when you look at the shape of a jigsaw puzzle piece, they're often a lot more, you know, you get two sticky outy bits next to each other and two sticky outy bits or sticky in bits next to each other, etc. These were all just the same. And what that meant was when you got to sections of the puzzle where it was a little bit harder to tell where like the color fade was going on, it was very easy to put pieces in the wrong place. Now, we spent a lot of time creating like the main background of this jigsaw puzzle, and when we got to that hot dog bun, I'm a very patient person, like well and truly, guys. I am somebody who is usually very like calm-headed. I'll take my time. If something's taking forever, I'm like, that's okay. I'll just enjoy the process. That's why I'm doing this. It was probably about the second day, maybe like fourth session of trying to complete this hot dog bun that I lost it. And I decided, you know what? We're just going to have to put these pieces in any old way that they will go in. My husband was 100% with me. I think he got there before I did. And we basically put pieces in place so that the jigsaw puzzle is complete. Even though if I show you guys a close-up of the bun, you will see that it is not right. But we could not. I well and truly could not figure out how to get it right. There were many hours spent trying to get that hot dog bun finished. And we decided enough was enough. We needed to move on with our lives. There is a jigsaw puzzle library where my parents are living. So you can like take a jigsaw puzzle, leave a jigsaw puzzle. It's like an honor system thing. So we ended up donating it just in case somebody does want to have a go and maybe has a little bit more patience than we do. But I didn't want to pass it on to somebody I know because it is honestly like one of the most frustrating jigsaw puzzles that I've ever done. We decided to pick up another jigsaw puzzle from a brand that I knew was good. So we got one from Eurographics. Highly recommend that brand of jigsaw puzzle. It was a really beautiful like sunset with lavender scene. It was really pretty, and wow, was it satisfying to put together. After you've been putting together a really awful jigsaw puzzle to then go to one that's like everything fits and it's really obvious when it fits and when it doesn't fit. It was really great, and it was definitely like what we needed. It was like the reset that we needed. So we did both those jigsaw puzzles while we were staying with my parents. The second one was pretty fast. We've got definitely pretty fast doing them together, and it was definitely a really relaxing activity, which is the whole point. Like I said, I wanted to do a lot of relaxing while I was away, not just be busy, busy, busy the whole time, and it was great to be able to do that. I also got a fair amount of reading done over the last couple of months, which is working towards my reading 25 books in 2025. I'm going to be definitely getting to that one way before the end of the year. I'm way past the halfway point. I do keep them numbered down below, like tallied the number of books that I finished and my marks out of 5, like my score, my personal rating. So if you guys are curious to see those, they're in all of my monthly makes and catch-up videos from the beginning of the year. But the first one that I finished, I'd actually talked about last time. It was the third book in the Mad Adam trilogy. It was the book called Mad Adam by Margaret Atwood. Love that trilogy. Definitely like absolutely some of my favorite books that I've read. So that was fun to finish. So I did mention it, but I did technically finish it this month. I also read the second book in the Dirk Gently Holistic Detective Agency trilogy by Douglas Adams, The Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul, which was fun. It was fine. It's not the greatest book ever in the world, but it's pretty solid. It's quite silly. I enjoyed it, got a little bit of a chuckle here and there. I also decided to take The Firm by John Grisham with me on my trip because I'd read some John Grisham when I was a teenager, hadn't read his stuff in years. I'd never read The Firm, which was like one of his most well-known books, and I quit on it pretty quickly. Didn't love it. Didn't love the writing style. Didn't love the general, like, what it was about. It was very much about like yuppie culture, being impressed by money and expensive cars, and it is so just not my wheelhouse. I was getting really bored by it, rolling my eyes, got to a stage where I was like, nah, that's the end of that, and I had to move on. I'm not counting that in books that I've read, but I just feel like it's worth mentioning. There was one that I started and had to abandon. When I got to my parents' house, I did not have a book to read, so my mom let me borrow one that she'd read recently, Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. It was very much like a light, nice read, very good for vacation reading, I would say. I enjoyed it. There were some fun characters. It was written in a nice way. It was a little bit playful, a little bit far-fetched at points, but I will say it was a fun one. I see why it's topping bestseller lists. It's not my #1 book, but it was a good one. I also picked up a book in a small Chicago bookshop called Ginkgo Season by Naomi Sue Elegant, which I hope I'm saying right, more or less. This is not a book that I've ever heard of. It's not an author that I've ever heard of. It actually had only come out, I think, a couple of months before I bought it. What I love about small independent bookshops is they will often have things on display that aren't necessarily like the standard bestseller list stuff that you're seeing everywhere else. And they will often have little reviews by people who work in the bookshop, things that they liked. And so you might be drawn to things that you might not have bought elsewhere. And this book, like I said, I just kind of went in not knowing what it was going to be, read the back and thought, yeah, that could be a fun one to read. And I did enjoy it. Again, really great vacation reading. I felt like I picked those kinds of things were the right stuff for me to be reading while I was on vacation. This book is about a young woman who's in her mid-20s. At that point in your life where often there's just a lot of change going on. So people might be moving away, getting married, sort of making big changes with their relationships, with their careers. And it was a time that I could definitely relate to because I read this while I was in Chicago. So we went to my parents' house first and then we went to Chicago separately. And when I was in Chicago, I was very much like reminiscing and remembering that type of period in my life in my early 20s when I was living in Chicago as a young adult on my own. And I felt like I could relate to a lot of things from the character there. But also it was just nice. You know, there was some interesting relationship stuff. There were some characters that were a little bit more thoughtful, more philosophical conversations. It was definitely the kind of thing I felt like I needed. I really did enjoy that book. I would be curious to see if this author puts out some other things. There were some elements that were perhaps a little bit overwritten. It's her first novel though, so I'd be curious to see possibly a progression if things change with the way that she's writing. But I think it was a good first novel. And then another book that I finished in July, I think I probably started it in early June, is one that I started reading years ago. Didn't finish it because I kind of paused and then it was hard to just start partway through and decide I need to just start over because I was enjoying it. And it is called Vehicles, Experiments in Synthetic Psychology by Valentino Breitenberg. I hope I got all that right. I'll put it up on the screen if I didn't. This is definitely a gear shift. This is, I want to say it's nonfiction, but it kind of almost doesn't feel like it fits into that. But it is like a thought experiment, essentially, where you are imagining small little vehicles or machines that are becoming increasingly complicated over the chapters, where they have like, they can do one thing and then they can do two things and then they get progressively more complex. It's like a demonstrating evolution. It's also talking about psychology, how the human brain works, animal brains work. It's so hard to describe. I will say like the first half of it, it's fairly easy to follow, and then the second half they're more trying to show how these things relate to the actual world rather than just these little simple machines. It's definitely something that's a bit different. I definitely did enjoy reading it. Probably wouldn't be for everyone, but if it sounds intriguing to you, I would say check it out. And I am also most of the way through a book that I picked up in a used bookshop in Chicago, but I'm going to share details about it next month when I've actually finished it. But I will be having another one shortly to add to the list. Like I said, I'm progressing well through my goal of 25 books this year. As far as life updates, really the main event was going back to the US to see all my family. So like I said, I'm from Chicago. That's where I was born and raised. My parents have now retired and moved out of the city, about an hour out of the city. So we went to stay with them for the majority of the time. And there's a lot of family that are actually pretty nearby to them, which was perfect, really convenient. I have a huge extended family on both parents' sides, and we did a great job of seeing almost everybody. I did not get to see everybody that I would have wanted to. Katie, I'm talking to you. I really wish I gotten to see you guys, but hey, it doesn't always work out that way. But I did love seeing everyone that I did. I love my family. My family are so much fun. We all get along really well. And even though I see them pretty infrequently, because I only go home about every couple of years these days, whenever I see everyone, there's always so much laughter. We have so much fun together. So there were lots of just like going and visiting little groups of my families. There was times when there was like a big get together at my parents' house. But it was great to get to see as many people as I could and spend a lot of time with my parents, which is always the best. It was also really nice to get to see my parents' new house because they've moved out of the family home since I was last there. And it was nice to get to know what the space is like when they're talking about the place, when they're showing us pictures of like their garden and things. I feel like I can understand it a lot more. I can put myself in the place. I went to a yoga class with my mom. We went to an outdoor concert, which was fun to do. I feel like they are settling in, and it was great to be able to actually see what it's like. I didn't feel like I could go visit the States and visit Illinois without actually spending some time in the city though. Because I am a Chicago girl, I really do love that city. And so we spent a few days in an Airbnb after we stayed with my parents. And it was really fun for my husband and I to get to just hang around and spend some time in Chicago. We stayed in Roscoe Village, which is a great neighborhood, very safe, very cozy, tons of independent stores and restaurants. Like I said, there was an independent bookstore that we went to there where I bought one book, two books. No, I bought two books from them, and it was super cute. We went to independent little cafes, had a great lunch. We went to the Music Box, which is always a great place to go if you guys are in the city. It's a very old-fashioned movie theater, and all the movies they had were very much our kind of thing. We saw the new Wes Anderson movie, The Phoenician Scheme, which was really fun. But we love just walking around the neighborhood, taking the L. I felt so at home on the L, like the familiar voice, the familiar seating. We went to Rogers Park, which is where I lived for a couple years before I moved to London, and that's where I was living when I first met my husband. He came to stay with me there, so he has nostalgia for it as much as I do. I've spent a lot of time in Rogers Park though, because that's where my dad grew up and that's where a lot of my family lived. So we went to Albion Beach, which is the beach I've probably gone to the most in the city, and it was nice to be able to go back. We went to my favorite used bookstore, the Armadillo's Pillow. If you're ever in Rogers Park, please go to the Armadillo's Pillow. It feels like my place. That is like my perfect image of Chicago. I can't believe that shop is still there and it has not changed. It is exactly the same. So I did buy a book from there, and I also traded in the firm, and so I ended up getting it for a very good price, the book that I bought, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. It's the one I'm going to be finishing soon. But it felt so great and just comfortable to be back in Chicago. I feel like I am somebody who grew up in a city, and I do like some degree like being in a busy city, but I don't want it too full on like downtown necessarily all the time. But I feel like where we were staying was a good balance for me. It's quite a leafy city. It's a very green city. There's tons of art around, and that's in both like the local neighborhoods, but also when you're in downtown. So much just street art and just random sculptures as you're going around. There's something that feels very arty and warm about it as a city. I know I'm biased. I'm from there, and so I obviously do like it. But it was great to be able to be back. We went to the Harold Washington Library, which is one of my favorite places in the city. If you're a book lover, I do recommend the Harold Washington Library. We went to Pilsen. We went to the National Museum of Mexican Art, which I highly recommend. I'd never been there before. It was fantastic. It was so wonderful and just interesting, colorful, a real mix of like traditional but also modern art together. Such a cool museum. And we also went to Five Rabanitos, which is a Mexican restaurant around the corner from there that I cannot recommend enough. Possibly my favorite food that I had on the whole trip, although it's difficult to weigh that up against the brats that my dad made. Point being, guys, great time in the city. I really did enjoy walking around the different neighborhoods, being in Pilsen, but also spending time in Roscoe Village, and the difference in the different neighborhoods of the feel of how people have their houses looking different, their gardens, the way they're like decorating the outdoor of their house. It was really fun to go around and see a little bit of everything. One other place we did have to go to is a place called the Waste Shed that I've heard about. There's a couple of locations. This did take like a couple of buses for us to get to. It was kind of probably a bit too much fuss, but I am glad that I went, which is where you can buy and also trade in secondhand art equipment, craft stuff, including fabrics and textiles and buttons and threads. I did buy some buttons, but I didn't go too nuts because I had a heavy suitcase already. But it's a cool place to go if you're in Chicago or in Evanston, which is where their other location is. We did end up spending one night downtown the last night just because we thought it would be nice to be able to get to the Blue Line easily when we wanted to just get the Alto hair when we were leaving, but also just to have more access to some of the things downtown that we wanted to check out. I feel like I hit all the main marks of things that I wanted to do while I was in Chicago, but I would definitely go back to that particular Airbnb again because I felt like it was so perfectly situated for us, and it was so great to be able to spend some time, like I said, in the city. Something I said to my mom, which I feel like kind of explains the whole thing of really wanting to spend some time there, is that as much as I'm an American and I do not live in America, the main thing that I miss is Chicago rather than the country as a whole. I feel like I'm a Chicagoan more than I'm an American, if that makes any kind of sense. I mean, it's a huge country, right? You get so much variety of things and people and, you know, just culture, food. My God, the Chicago food, like, come on. But yeah, I feel like overall it was great to be able to feel very at home, which is how I felt in Chicago. And I felt like not only is this the city that makes sense for me, and the place that I really enjoy being and feel the most at home, I feel like it's the city that's kind of made me who I am and molded me to being the person that I am. So it felt really great to be back there. And of course, as much as I did really love everything about that trip, really enjoyed our time away, it's always nice to be back in your own space, sleeping in your own bed, where everything is just how you like it, how you want it. So it's been good to get back to London, get back into the rhythm of things. We did come back to pretty hot weather, considering we were in hot weather in Chicago. Usually we come back and it's a bit cooler here. It has not particularly been. Over the last week, we have had some rain. It has cooled down a bit, so I'm not going to complain. But on the whole, I've been absolutely loving all the warm weather we're having in London. I'm sure some people are kind of beyond it, past it, but it's very much what I like this time of year, so it's been perfect for me. I am really excited to be getting back into the rhythm of things, doing my YouTube videos, hopefully getting some sewing done. These are the things I really do enjoy on the day-to-day. I am thinking about making some more tutorial type videos because I've had really good feedback from the tutorial videos that I've done before. So if you have any suggestions of things that you feel like you would like to see a video for, please do let me know in the comments down below. Please tell me if there are any highlights of my trip that you're particularly interested in. If you have any questions, very happy to answer them. Certainly the things that I've sewn, I've had some real wins. This matching set, like I said, I feel like is like a big top of my list of things that I've made recently. So I'm really excited to wear this and basically want to wear it all the time, especially in the warm weather. I hope that it was nice to get a catch up. Thank you for your patience in waiting while I have my vacation time. I will be seeing you guys again soon with more videos. Please do give me a like if you enjoyed this one. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss those upcoming videos, and I will see you guys soon. Bye!